Finally, it's no longer a rumor. China's stealth fighters are real, operational, and they just flipped the global balance of power on its head. From stolen blueprints to battlefield dominance, the rise of China's warplanes is more than military, it's psychological warfare. And now, the West is on defense. Now, let's talk about how China's stealth fighter surge is changing global air power forever. Introduction: the rise that no one saw coming. In the early days of the Cold War, few could have imagined that China, then reliant on Soviet hand-me-downs and battling internal political turmoil, would one day produce some of the world's most advanced fighter jets. Yet in 2025, that unimaginable future has arrived. What began as a modest air force built on foreign blueprints has transformed into a world-class aerial juggernaut. From the simple MiG-17 clones of the 1950s to the shadowy, tailless sixth-generation fighters now flying over Chengdu, China's aviation revolution has reached a pace few rivals can match. And it's sending tremors through every airbase and war room from Washington to New Delhi. This is more than a military modernization. It's a global power statement. And it's one that could fundamentally shift the balance of power in the 21st century. Stolen designs, broken barriers, the birth of China's jet era. China's fighter jet story begins with copies. The Shenyang J-5, introduced in 1956, was a near-identical clone of the Soviet MiG-17. It was basic, outdated by the time it was deployed, but it marked China's entry into the jet age. Shortly after, the J-6, a supersonic copy of the Soviet MiG-19, became China's first true jet workhorse. Mass-produced during the Cold War, it gave the Chinese military the ability to challenge US and Soviet aircraft in limited regional conflicts. These aircraft lacked radar, missiles, and advanced avionics, but they proved a point: China could build its own jets. The Nanchang Q-5, a ground attack derivative of the J-6, showed further innovation. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. In a world dominated by American F-4 Phantoms and Soviet MiG-21s, China's Air Force was still considered a generation behind. For decades, Western analysts were dismissive. "Their planes don't last, don't work, and don't matter," a retired US general famously said in the 1980s. Today, he might be eating those words. The turning point: China goes multi-role. Everything began to shift in the 1990s. As China's economy opened up, its military followed suit. With technology deals, industrial espionage, and rapid prototyping, China began producing more advanced fighters at unprecedented speed. The J-10, a lightweight multi-role jet with delta wings and canards, marked a major leap. While its design reportedly borrowed from Israeli and Russian inputs, it was the first fighter China didn't copy, it created. Soon came the J-11, a heavily modified Su-27 clone, followed by the J-16, a twin-engine strike-optimized aircraft equipped with modern sensors, electronic warfare pods, and long-range missiles. With over 280 units estimated in service by 2025, the J-16 is often referred to as China's F-15E Strike Eagle. Then came the JF-17 Thunder, developed in partnership with Pakistan. It was fast, cheap, and effective, designed for export, and it worked. Several countries, including Nigeria, Myanmar, and even Argentina, have adopted it. For the first time, China wasn't just building jets, it was exporting them. Western observers started to notice, but many remained unconvinced. They wouldn't remain so for long. J-20, Mighty Dragon, China's stealth era begins. The world changed in 2017 when the Chengdu J-20 officially entered service. China had become the second nation on Earth to field an operational stealth fighter. And it wasn't just for show. Armed with PL-15 long-range air-to-air missiles, the J-20 can reportedly engage targets over 300 kilometers away, giving it a significant edge in beyond visual range combat. Its stealth profile, combined with powerful radar and modern avionics, put it on par, at least theoretically, with America's F-22 and F-35. Then came a surprise. In late 2021, China unveiled the J-20S, a two-seat stealth fighter, the first of its kind globally. Military analysts believe the second seat is for managing unmanned drones in combat, coordinating battlefield networks, or conducting advanced electronic warfare missions. As of 2025, the PLAAF operates an estimated 250-plus J-20s, with production lines in Chengdu pushing toward mass-scale deployment. The J-20 is not a prototype. It's not a paper tiger. It's real, it's operational, and it's part of a much bigger plan, says an anonymous U.S. Air Force official. The J-35, China's F-35 killer? Just as the U.S. Navy relies on the F-35B and F-35C for carrier operations, China is deploying its own stealth carrier fighter, the J-35, also referred to as the FC-31 or J-21 in earlier phases. First revealed in its naval form at the 2024 Zhuhai Air Show, the J-35 stunned observers with its polished stealth airframe, internal weapons bay, and carrier-ready arrestor hook. With the Type 003 aircraft carrier Fujian preparing for sea trials and electromagnetic catapult launch systems now operational, the J-35 is expected to form the backbone of China's blue water stealth air fleet. For the first time in history, the U.S. may face a peer adversary in carrier-based stealth aviation, warns a retired U.S. admiral. The global balance of maritime air power is teetering. The J-36, Project Nantianmen, and the 6th-gen arms race. In late 2024, grainy footage began to surface of a mysterious tailless fighter jet taking off under tight security near Chengdu. Analysts were stunned. The aircraft had no vertical stabilizers, suggesting next-gen stealth, 3 engines, possibly for supercruise and high-altitude maneuvering, a massive wingspan and blended body, similar to U.S. 6th-gen concepts like the NGAD. Unofficially dubbed the J-36, this 6th-generation prototype appears to be part of Project Nantianmen, China's most secretive aerospace initiative. What's more alarming is how fast it appeared. The U.S. Next-Gen Air Dominance project is still in development stages. China, by contrast, already has a prototype in the sky. Chinese military blogs and government-linked forums hint at wild capabilities: AI co-pilot assistance, drone swarm command, hypersonic weapon delivery, near spaceflight potential. Some have even claimed it's a component of a multi-platform system that includes satellite integration, drone fighters, and long-range stealth bombers, a complete ecosystem of next-gen air dominance. The White Emperor rumor and what it could mean. As if a 6th-gen prototype wasn't enough, unconfirmed reports mention a classified platform dubbed the White Emperor, removed to be a space-capable fighter or high-altitude bomber. Some reports allege that the aircraft can operate at the edge of the atmosphere, launch high-speed precision strikes, and drop hypersonic glide vehicles from orbit-like altitudes. The code name Project Nantian-Men, referencing a mythological gate to heaven, has only intensified speculation. While details remain unverified, the global community is already preparing for a reality where China no longer limits itself to air superiority, but space dominance. The global response and growing fear. The US, Japan, India, Australia, and NATO members are watching closely and responding. The US has accelerated NGAD development with a projected prototype rollout by 2027. India is fast-tracking its AMCA stealth fighter, citing regional balance concerns. Japan has signed deals with the UK and Italy to jointly develop the GCAP 6th-gen platform. Taiwan has increased investments in mobile radar, anti-stealth systems, and asymmetric air defense. But there's a growing concern among global defense analysts. China's cycle of development is now faster than the West's. What took the US 20 years to build, China is replicating in 10. And in some cases, they're going further, said defense expert Malcolm Davis in a Sky News interview. Weapons of the Dragon, the missiles that make the fighters deadlier. A fighter jet is only as deadly as the weapons it carries, and in this arena, China has developed some of the most advanced missile systems in the world, designed specifically to outrange and outmatch Western platforms. PL-15, a long-range air-to-air missile with a range exceeding 300 kilometers. Equipped with an ESAS radar seeker, it can strike targets before U.S. fighters even know they're being tracked. This missile has already forced the U.S. to accelerate its own AAM development programs. PL-10, a high off-bore sight short-range missile, paired with helmet-mounted displays, gives pilots of the J-10C, J-16, and J-20 extreme close combat dominance comparable to the U.S. AIM-9X. PL-17, PL-XX, unconfirmed, believed to be a massive ultra-long-range missile designed to take out AWACS, tankers, and support aircraft, potentially up to 500 kilometers away. If deployed in real numbers, it could make U.S. and NATO support operations in contested airspace nearly impossible. YJXX series, a family of anti-ship and land attack missiles designed to cripple U.S. carriers, air bases, and radar facilities. The combination of stealthy aircraft and precision missiles forms a first strike doctrine China could employ in a Taiwan or South China Sea conflict. China's fighters are no longer just platforms, they're precision missile trucks, capable of reshaping battles before they even begin. Drones, swarms, and AI. The rise of manned-unmanned teaming. MUMT. China's future air power isn't just manned. It's increasingly unmanned, autonomous, and artificially intelligent. Sources close to the Chinese defense industry confirm that J-20S variants are already testing AI integration and drone swarm control. These loyal wingmen, small, stealthy, unmanned aircraft, could be used to fly ahead of human fighters and absorb enemy fire, carry out electronic warfare or decoy missions, relay real-time targeting data to missiles or satellites, sacrifice themselves to jam or crash into enemy radars. The program is reportedly modeled on the U.S. Air Force's Skyborg and Collaborative Combat Aircraft (CCA) programs, but again, China may be further along than expected. A leaked 2025 defense white paper in China described unmanned teaming as a necessary leap forward to neutralize numerical inferiority in a major war. The implication? China is preparing to face superior Western numbers with superior autonomy. The battlefield vision: how China could use its jets in a real conflict. So how would China deploy these jets in a real war scenario? Here are the most likely scenarios. Taiwan invasion, reunification by force. J-20 sweep the skies of Taiwan and disable early warning radars. J-16s and J-10Cs launch precision missile strikes on airfields and command centers. Drone swarms jam, confuse, and overwhelm remaining defenses. J-35s, launched from Chinese aircraft carriers near the east coast of Taiwan, secure naval air dominance. Within hours, Taiwan's air defenses could be neutralized or paralyzed. South China Sea clash. China's carrier groups, backed by J-35 squadrons and long-range J-16 patrols, dominate the South China Sea airspace. Using refueling drones and AWACS support, J-20s project power deep into disputed territories. Anti-ship missile strikes launched from stealth platforms could force U.S. carriers to retreat outside the first island chain. High-altitude air denial. India, Himalayas. High-altitude fighters like the J-16 and J-20 are deployed to Tibet and Xinjiang. Their range and oxygenated engines give them an edge over Indian aircraft like the Su-30 MKI. In an air war over the Himalayas, stealth, range, and missile quality would likely decide the victor, and China's advantage is growing. The key across all these scenarios is first strike dominance. China is investing heavily in capabilities that would allow it to disable an enemy's defenses in the first few hours of combat, a tactic designed not for prolonged conflict, but for swift, devastating control. Conclusion. The era of Chinese air dominance has arrived, and the world isn't ready. From Soviet cast-offs to stealth dominance, China's rise in the skies is no longer an abstract military development. It is a concrete, existential shift in global air power dynamics. This isn't just a story of fighter jets. It's a story of speed, scale, and strategic vision, executed at a pace the world failed to anticipate. In less than 2 decades, China has accomplished what the United States took nearly 50, building not just a modern air force, but an ecosystem of warfare, seamlessly integrating stealth aircraft, precision missiles, drones, AI systems, electronic warfare, and space-based support. This evolution did not happen in isolation. It was built deliberately, by design, not by accident. While Western democracies debated procurement delays, budget overruns, and the politics of defense spending, Beijing moved with singular focus. Every new fighter wasn't just a weapon, it was a signal, a warning, and a chess piece on the geopolitical board. The introduction of the J-20, followed by the J-35, and now the mysterious J-36 prototype, is more than a technological triumph. It is a declaration of intent. intent to dominate Asia's airspace, intent to challenge U.S. power projection, intent to force the world to rethink military supremacy. The implications are staggering. For Taiwan, the skies are growing darker. For U.S. aircraft carriers, the South China Sea may soon be a high-risk zone. For American allies in Asia, from Japan to Australia, the question is no longer if China can strike first, but how fast and from how far. And for U.S. military planners, the dreaded phrase is becoming more real each day. Air superiority can no longer be assumed. Perhaps the most shocking realization is that China may not even be at its peak yet. The sixth-generation arms race has just begun. With the U.S. and its allies scrambling to catch up, China has already placed metal in the sky, proof of concept, proof of ambition, and proof of future dominance. But beyond the weapons, beyond the stealth, and beyond the data, lies something more profound: psychological warfare. Beijing wants its rivals to doubt themselves, to fear escalation, and to second-guess their own technology. Every takeoff of a J-20 or J-36 isn't just training, it's theater aimed at undermining the confidence of those who once believed they ruled the skies. So where does this leave the world? In a new era, the age of strategic uncertainty, where air dominance is no longer the West's given right, and where the next major conflict may not be decided by troops on the ground, but by machines in the sky. The dragon has spread its wings, not as a challenger, but as a co-equal in the heavens. The question is no longer whether China can win an air war. It's whether anyone can stop them from starting one.